Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Karlan. Welcome to Hey Doc, What's New in Plant-Based Medicine? Today, I'm so excited to have my very dear friend and nurse mentor. Oh my goodness, there's a gardener outside. I don't think I can do anything about that. And nurse mentor, who is truly a model for all nurses, I think, around the world, because she has increased her education as time goes on. Now she's Dr. Carolyn Trapp, the Director of Diabetes Education and Care at the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and she is going to tell us about her programs with the Navajo Nation. Dr. Trapp, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
I'm so glad you're here too. So, hey Doc, what's new in plant-based medicine?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So did you know on Monday, it's Indigenous Peoples Day, and this is a great time for us to be talking about plant-based nutrition and Native Americans, people who've been very hard hit by chronic disease and now COVID-19.
It is, and it's really hit people with the most comorbidities. So it's really been a problem, and but there are some solutions, and we're going to talk about that. But first, so we have some continuity of the show. Let's talk about the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine's Nurses Nutrition Network. Tell us about that.
Well, as through Physicians Committee, you and I have met, and I've had the privilege of meeting lots of other nurses who are using plant-based nutrition in clinical practice, are eating plant-based for their own health, and of course there are many other nurses who are curious about this, want to know more, and aren't learning this information in school. So we've started something called the Nurses Nutrition Network. That name came from my colleague Joanne Evans. And we have been meeting at our annual conference as a luncheon, but now we have a virtual program where we will be meeting quarterly. And coming up on Thursday night, October 29th, very excited to tell any nurse about this program. Invite you to register at it at pcrm.org/nurses. Got two wonderful speakers that night talking about nurses and self-care. Very timely topic right now. I've got Tammy Robertson from Arizona and Jane Esselstyn from Ohio, who will be sharing lots of pearls. And then the best is we have networking, and it's a Zoom call. We break into small rooms and people get a chance to know each other.
That's fantastic. I can't wait. I can't wait for that. And because people sometimes say, well, you're a nurse, why are you involved with Physicians Committee? Can you answer that? Can you answer what the role of nurses are in Physicians Committee? And while you're talking, I'm going to see if I can get the gardener to leave my front yard.
Oh dear. Okay. So sure. So, Physicians Committee, the name is a bit of a misnomer. The Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine is open to all healthcare professionals and lay people who are interested in changing the way medicine is done and emphasizing the role of nutrition to prevent and treat chronic disease. And I'm one of many nurses who are active in the organization. I'm one of a number of nurses and nurse practitioners who are employed by the Physicians Committee. And the information that the Physicians Committee makes available, patient education material, clinical education material, is of great interest to all nurses.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm so sorry for the noise. So I hope everybody please signs up. And if you know any nurses, please share this broadcast with them, because what we're doing is so interesting. What Dr. Trapp is doing is incredibly interesting. And this is just a wonderful, it's something else that nurses of any level can participate in. So all the way from your basic associate degree registered nurse all the way to doctors of nursing practice. So please share the feed. Share it anyway. But if you know nurses, please share it with them as well. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next subject we're going to talk about. It takes me a moment to get the banners down. And let's talk about, pull this up. It's having a little difficulty with my computer
That's
today.
okay.
I'm
so I
sorry.
know
Just
you
be
want
patient.
us to talk about Native Americans. And, for the last decade, I've been working with Native Americans because my background is in diabetes, and Native Americans have been very hard hit by this disease. It's hard to get good statistics, but some Native nations have estimates of 35 or more % of the adult population has type 2 diabetes. And the work that Dr. Barnard did years ago, looking at a plant-based diet and diabetes, has been of interest to Native American healthcare professionals and Native American people, because the foods we're talking about, plants, are the foods that made up a large part of the diet of Indigenous people, especially in the southwestern states. So I've been working with people of the Navajo Nation now for a number of years. So I know you're having trouble with those slides, but I'll.
There we go. I'm gonna try to get it down. I don't know why I can't get it down. Give me one moment here.
Sure.
And there they are. They're leaving. Okay, here we go. All right, here comes the first slide. All right, there we go.
So this first slide says the story of diabetes in Native Americans. And people are often surprised that that's a significant concern. Maybe they've heard about other social problems, or they think that there are other reasons for it other than food. But I'm here to tell you that food is the underlying problem for all Americans in type 2 diabetes. And it's especially a problem in Native communities. Native Americans see all the complications from head to toe, including heart disease. Lisa, are you seeing this picture of past president of the Navajo Nation that I'm seeing right now? Okay, there we go. So
no, are you seeing
the cover? Yeah, the slides are kind of jumping around.
Okay. Yeah, because it's not showing me. I don't understand what's going on, but let's just go. We'll just make the best of it. Okay, so let's talk about, I'll go to the next slide. So hopefully this will come up, and then we'll get to one of your success stories. So
sure.
I hope that's going to come up.
All right, so what I'm seeing now is the slide that says the impact of diabetes. And this is a disease that affects people really from head to toe. And this is all because too much sugar in the blood leads to damage to blood vessels and to organs, and that can lead to heart attacks and strokes. It's actually linked to dementia, and even certain types of cancer. This picture shows a woman in a dialysis unit. Kidney failure is a common problem among people who have uncontrolled type 2 diabetes. And the fortunate thing about this is that these complications and the disease in itself are largely preventable. So here you see pictures of a former patient of mine, and this is Ira, who's happy to have me share his story. On the left, you see a picture of him when he was not in good health. At his heaviest, he weighed almost 400 pounds, and he was on over 200 units of insulin a day, along with medications for blood pressure, depression, other concerns. And the picture on the right shows a more current picture of him with a diet change. He started to find he had more energy. He started walking, then he started running, and he decided he wanted to really challenge himself. And in this picture, he had done a half Ironman, which is a run and a bike and a swim. He's now gone on to complete 2 full Ironman competitions. And he's off all of his insulin, all of his medications for diabetes and other chronic diseases. And that's all possible just with a simple diet change.
Let's take a look.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we have another success story to talk about. These are just incredible.
So this is the story of Debbie. And Debbie's a nurse, and here she is at age 41. She was newly diagnosed with diabetes, although she'd had gestational diabetes 10 years earlier. She was unhappy with her weight. Her A1C, which is a measure of diabetes, was 7.5%. After being put on 2 pills by her doctor, here she is a few years later, she was told she was in great control for diabetes. Her A1C had come down to 6.6%. She'd lost some weight. Her cholesterol and her triglyceride level was a little better, but she was on 2 medications for diabetes, including an injection and a pill for blood pressure and a pill for cholesterol. Her numbers looked better. However, she didn't feel good at all. And here she is holding her first grandbaby, and she was unhappy with herself that she wasn't able to get off of medications. So next, Lisa, you've got a more current picture of Debbie. Here she is in 2017. This picture was taken, she was off all of her diabetes medications for 2 full years. After just 2 months on a plant-based diet, her A1C is in the normal range. She's wearing size small scrubs for the first time in her professional life. And one thing about Debbie is that she is really unhappy that she wasn't told about this approach by her physician. She didn't learn about this in school. And I've got this great picture of Debbie most recently. Here she had traveled to Australia to hold her second grandchild, and she's in much better health. She no longer has diabetes or high blood pressure or high cholesterol, and she wants everyone to know that a plant-based diet was responsible for her health turnaround. She really got her life back.
And this is so important, because when you look at what so many nurses eat in the break room, it's rare to find healthy food. And often we find nurses who have very high BMIs, are pre-diabetic, and sometimes diabetic. Sometimes they go the full route of this woman, Debbie, and you can see how incredible the transformation is. Food is medicine.
It absolutely is. So right now you're showing this picture of a map of the US, and the darker the color, the higher the rates of diabetes. And I've circled this area over New Mexico and Arizona. That is where the Navajo Nation is. And the Navajo Nation is comprised of over 300,000 individuals covering 2.5 states, 25,000 square miles. And they have extremely high rates of diabetes. And that is why Dr. Barnard and I started working with the special diabetes program of the Navajo Nation to talk about what were traditional foods there, what were the traditional diet, and talk about our research. So what kind of foods were provided to Indian reservations? Well, there are things like canned meat, blocks of cheese, bags of powdered milk, and lard was included in the commodity program until about 11 years ago. So we couldn't have designed a box of food more likely to lead people to serious medical problems. And there are some there are some fresh fruits and vegetables included, but these foods were especially problematic, and they really got people hooked on the taste of high-fat foods, high-fat convenience foods. Spam is something that is available in grocery stores and convenience stores across the Navajo Nation. I didn't know there were so many varieties of this canned meat.
Yeah, there is a lot.
Not a health food.
Very quickly give us, let people understand what the commodity programs are?
Sure. So the commodity food, like other programs that provide food to people who are living at the poverty level, like the SNAP program, the commodity program actually provides a box of food to individuals. Usually it's once a month. And those are foods, commodities are foods that are basically bought up by the U.S. government in order to keep farmers in business, which sounds like a good thing, but they're buying up things like eggs and cheese and meat and then dumping them basically into this program that keeps people, it's providing really unhealthful foods to people who really are not benefiting from those foods at all. So, when I started doing this work, I was curious about what were traditional foods. And in fact, is there a Native American cuisine? The first conference I went to for Native American healthcare professionals, I was really excited to get to try Native American foods. And I was really disappointed to find that traditional foods were not served at this conference. The Friday night dinner was spaghetti and meatballs, and next day tacos and enchiladas covered with cheese and full of ground meat. This map of the U.S. shows that while some traditional foods are meat, we think of Native Americans as hunters, buffalo certainly, but also there are a number of plants that are very important, like the pinyon nuts and certainly corn and chili peppers. Were all traditional and have a very important role in Native American cuisine. One tradition of Native Americans that perhaps people have heard of is called the Three Sisters. And this is growing corn, beans, and squash together. And they not only grow well together, but they taste delicious when eaten together. And these foods continue to be important to many Native nations. A couple of other things that I've learned from my work with Native Americans is about preventing pellagra. You may have heard of early settlers developing this deficiency of niacin. And it is a native process to soak corn in lime or in ash. And that releases the niacin from the grain. And it can prevent this disease, this life-threatening disease called pellagra. Now, how indigenous people figured this out, I have no idea, but it really is remarkable.
So interesting.
Here's another really interesting thing that I learned about. So across desert areas, you see these cedar and juniper trees growing, and indigenous people would collect the leaves from these trees and burn them. And then they would use the ash in cooking. And here you see a Navajo woman who is sifting the ash out of sifting the ash and separating it from leftovers from these leaves. And she's going to use it in cooking. And I have some pictures here to show you. Navajo people would combine this ash with ground corn to make blue corn mush. Now, why is that significant? Well, these ashes were actually very high in calcium. And in fact, a gram of ash, which is the equivalent of the weight of a paper clip, has as much calcium as 8 ounces of milk. And Native people eat this mixed with blue cornmeal and water. And this next picture shows you a blue cornmeal mush, which is a delicious dish. Unfortunately, there aren't too many restaurants that are serving it. But if you have the opportunity to travel to the Navajo Nation, maybe some other tribes as well, it's a delicious thing to try. And it's a great source of protein and lots of other nutrients, but calcium as well. Native people didn't run around chasing and milking buffalo to get their calcium. They got it from plants.
Isn't that great? They weren't drinking milk.
That's right.
All right, let's talk about another one of your success stories and somebody who became so influential and is a model for the community.
I love telling this story. So way back in 2010, Dr. Barnard and I taught a class at the Navajo Nation Museum in partnership with the Special Diabetes Program of the Department of Health. And I've circled this picture of Marjolaine, who was one of our first graduates. And Marjolaine is a delightful woman. You see pictures of her here on the left, where she was a cheerful health educator, but in the course of the years that I knew her, she developed diabetes, and she was very embarrassed by this as a nutritionist. She thought she should know how to prevent it. And she reluctantly decided she was going to try out a plant-based diet herself, which she did with great success. And now she's lost a number of dress sizes. She's been able to get off of a number of her medications. And here she is now teaching this information to other Native Americans. And some of the things she teaches is don't eat cheese. Instead, enjoy avocados and nuts and seeds. Don't eat fried eggs and Spam, but instead you can enjoy beans and corn tortillas and spinach. Or it's not native, but widely available, rolled oats with nuts and fruit, or Cheerios with non-dairy milk and a side of faux bacon. Instead of fried potatoes and mutton stew, which are very popular, enjoy roasted potatoes and Three Sisters stew. And instead of ice cream, it's not native, you can freeze blue corn mush with berries, and it makes a delicious cold treat. I love this lesson from another tribe. Powdered milk, instead of drinking it, they will use it to line their baseball diamonds and their soccer fields.
Isn't that funny?
Clever, really, really clever.
Very, 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 very clever. All right, let's put you back up for a second while I find if I get the next slide.
So Marjolaine and other people that I've met there are really inspirations because they don't have many access to the sort of healthcare that many of us do in other places. They don't always have affordable produce available. But unfortunately, they've gotten away from the many traditions about growing their own food, although those things are coming back. And in our work, we really work to provide education and to increase demand for these healthy foods. And people like Marjolaine really inspire me and my work. It's been delightful to see her get healthier and then to work so hard to share this information with other people.
How difficult was it? Because this is such a different culture. You know, I know when I teach, it's so much easier to teach a culture that is similar to me. But if I am now speaking to people who are of African descent or Latinos and Latinas, I think they'd rather hear from somebody that's like them. This was really challenging. You're not a Native American. How did you manage to get into several Native American communities and get them to listen to you and adopt these plans? That's such an interesting story.
Well, I have to say that I attribute the success in part to Dr. Neil Barnard's vision that, and to have the opportunity to keep going back, because Native people have seen many times white people come in and offer something or come in and do research and then leave. And Native people are not any better for those interactions. But I've had the opportunity to keep coming back and to meet people and to develop relationships and to provide training to people who are interested, Native people who can then take this information and make it their own and share their own experiences and their own success stories and create materials that they then share. And in fact, we've created this website called nativepowerplate.org, and we've worked with many Native partners. We've worked with an organization called NACA in Flagstaff. NACA is Native Americans for Community Action. We've worked with the Office of the President and the Vice President of the Navajo Nation. In fact, President Jonathan Nez is a president of a sovereign nation, and he follows a plant-based diet. And I've been with him at several programs now where he has stood up in front of his people and talked about the benefits of plant-based eating, how it's benefited him personally as an athlete, and how he hopes that others will try this. Now, this is President Russell Begay, the former president, who issued a proclamation in November of 2015 in honor of National Diabetes Awareness Month, in which he said the Navajo people have been hard hit by diabetes, and he encouraged them to get more exercise and eat more plant-based foods. Really good advice. And President Nez is now continuing that tradition. And we need more government leaders who lead by example. One place where I've seen tremendous success is at the Sahotso Medical Center. And you're going to have a guest on shortly to follow me who works at Sahotso. And here, April James, who's the head of food service, recognized that her colleagues and coworkers were not healthy. She herself was not healthy. And she invited us in to do a training of her staff in the food service department. And they started offering plant-based meals every day. They made it the chef's special for $5. You could get a delicious plant-based meal. And she really was a great leader who went on to offer 4-week employee wellness challenges where employees had the opportunity to get weight and blood pressure and blood work done at the beginning and end of 4 weeks. And each week, an employee at Sahotso would teach a lesson about plant-based eating. And people in this program saw great improvement and would keep coming back to April and say, can we do this again? It's really very worthwhile.
In fact, that's what, excuse me, Tarrah Oliver, who's going to be on when you leave in a little while, she was one of the people in that program, and she's going to talk about that, which I think is just incredible.
Absolutely. Tarrah is a great example of somebody who's bravely taken this on and gotten her whole family involved. So,
okay,
so who is the family? Yeah, so this is the Yao family. So that's Jensen holding his arm up. Jensen's lost 80 pounds and kept it off for, I think, 8 years now. And then over on the other, so his parents are in the middle. And then on the other side of this picture is his sister, Jamie. And Jamie embraced this way of eating and loves to cook and became the cook for the whole family. And one of the highlights of my professional career was when Jamie had her first baby. I was invited to hold her. And here she is at 11 days old. And her grandpa, Eddie, called me from the delivery room and said, Karlan, we have the first vegan Navajo baby. So, and Nevaeh, and here's Nevaeh and her grandpa. And I've had great fun watching Nevaeh grow up. And Nevaeh started kindergarten last year. And she is now a delightful, healthy baby who now has a toddler. Here she is at age 2. And she now has a little brother. And Jamie was completely plant-based vegan through both of the pregnancies. Here's Nevaeh in kindergarten. And these are healthy, active kids who love to hike and bike and garden. And they are leading by example of what's possible. It's her parents' hope that these kids will never know the word diabetes. So I like to say that, we're telling the story now of how Native Americans defeated diabetes.
And they did. So let's talk about some of the other issues, especially for nurses, how we get the treatment, the medical treatment of diabetes. So what I learned, and still today, if you go to any medical conference, there will always be a lecture about diabetes. And often that lecture, unfortunately, focuses on the latest medications. There's 12 classes of medications available for diabetes. And in the office where I practiced, there was a closet that was full of samples, and there was a refrigerator that was full of injectables to treat diabetes. And, for many years, I was really proud that I was an expert in these. I knew how to prescribe them. I knew how to get people over the fear of doing an injection. And I thought I was doing people a favor, giving them their first dose of these medications. And now I recognize I was really just working as a shill for the pharmaceutical industry by doing this, because really, as I've learned from Native Americans, food is medicine. This is a picture of a sign that I found on the Navajo Nation at a community garden. And they recognize this, taking medications is not a normal thing. It's not a natural way to prevent and treat this disease. And it's delightful to be able to have tools now and information
to get people off of medications, which are expensive and have side effects and don't treat the underlying disease. One program I'm really proud of is the Physicians Committee, along with the Navajo Nation and NACA and the Diné Food Sovereignty Program, put on a 4-hour webinar called Cooking to Combat COVID-19. And it was recorded in 3 parts, and it's available on our website, nativepowerplate.org, for anybody who'd like to watch it. President Nez is there. Eric Adams, from New York, is there telling his diabetes success story, along with many Native health educators. So it's a great resource. And there are some cooking demonstrations there, and recipes are available, along with a number of other materials at nativepowerplate.org.
I love it. And I'll put all of these websites, the one for nurses to sign up and join the webinar on October 29th, and also the nativepowerplate.org. So don't worry about writing it down. It'll be in the description. So just go back to either the show notes on YouTube or the description on Facebook. And I'm going to try to do my best to get it on Twitter, but it'll probably be on Facebook and YouTube. So
that's great. And you know, that Nurses Nutrition Network, we're going to talk about self-care now, but in February, I've got 2 great speakers talking about health disparities and how nurses can help. So I really want to invite all nurses to come and be part of that at pcrm.org/nurses.
And this is interesting.
Two of our speakers.
On the right is Eric Adams. He's the borough president of Brooklyn, who reversed his diabetes. And he has a book that just came out this week called Healthy at Last. Could we talk just a little bit about that? And then this is President Begay, who is the president of the Navajo.
No, Lisa, I'm sorry that the wrong name is under that. That's President Jonathan Nez, who's the current president of the Navajo Nation. He was our speaker.
I'm glad you.
Yeah, so, and it was really interesting. We had both of them speak at our Cooking to Combat COVID-19 program. And President Eric Adams spoke directly to President Nez and said to him, you know, that he was inspired by President Nez and that they both face similar challenges in working with populations that have been so hard hit by diabetes and other chronic diseases, and have many challenges to overcome to get healthier. But the first is to provide this information, this life-saving information about the power of food. And let's start by getting that out to people and create demand for healthier foods.
So it goes across all races, all nationalities, all cultures. And food is so important, and we really can make healthier choices and really eat still within our own cultures the food that we enjoy eating. And I think what is so incredibly inspirational, what you and Dr. Barnard have done, is you've been able to come into the Native American communities and really help them use food that was indigenous to them before the commodity programs, before the only food that they could buy were food that was available in convenience stores and very little fresh, whole food, plant-based. But now it's turning the tide, and there's a lot more work to be done. But you've made such an incredible start, and you've turned so many lives around, and these people will serve as models for other people in the community. We have one more slide that I want to show, and get to this here.
Well, I want to say thank you to you, Lisa, for saying that. And we've got these great resources at nativepowerplate.org that were put together by many people I've come to know and love, and including recipes from Native American chef Walter Whitewater, who's from Pinion, Arizona, the Diné Nation, Navajo Nation, and Chef Lois Ellen Frank, who's from the Kiowa Nation. And their recipes are just beautiful. They can be downloaded here, along with a number of other videos and terrific resources. We have a curriculum for kids, for Native American kids, and we continue to create new things and put them up at that website. So I really appreciate you making this resource available to people, spreading the word.
Well, it's so important because the communities with the most risk factors for chronic disease are the hardest hit across the nation. And doing this show now for about 16 weeks, I've learned from so many of the physicians, dietitians, and actually you're the first nurse that I have, but I hope I'll have some other nurses on my show as well, have all said the same thing. Reducing comorbidities is the best way to prevent a serious case of COVID. Now, we're not saying that 100% it's going to work, but when you look in percentages, by reducing comorbidities, you reduce the risk for chronic disease, which is heart disease is our #1 killer, and then you have diabetes and cancer and other autoimmune diseases. But now you layer on COVID. So really doing this is just so important. So thank you so much. I know you're so busy. It's just wonderful that you were able to join me today. Thank you very much, Dr. Karlan Trapp. And I'll have her, I guess, how can people contact you? Shall we put a...
Sure, you can put my email address, ctrapp@pcrm.org.
I'll do that. I'll add that in the comments. And if you could go into the comments over the next few days and respond, that would be wonderful. I'm sure people would really appreciate that. So thank you so much for joining us. And stay tuned, everybody. We're going to now add somebody else on, Tarrah Oliver. So I'm going to let you go. And thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Carolyn.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. All right, so now I'm going to share my screen, and Tarrah Oliver wasn't able to actually be with us today, but I filmed a video, so it's kind of going to look like, because I'm talking in the background, it's going to look like she's here with us, so I'm going to see if I can make this work. So be patient one moment, everybody. Hang on while I try to... There we go.
What's going on?
I'm so glad that you're able to join us today. I'm just really appreciative that you were able to find the time because you're busy. You work full time and you've got 2 young children. How old are your children?
I have 2. Lucas is 6 and Samuel is 3. 2 boys.
And you work full time and you're married.
Yes, yes, I do have a husband.
And you are the full-time chef at the house?
Yeah, it's mostly me, but my husband just gets these sporadic, like, let's make this. I saw this on YouTube. So it goes back and forth.
Well, I love that. And you are a member of the Navajo Nation Diné tribe, which I think is very unusual. So many people who haven't had the pleasure of interacting with someone who's Native American, it's so nice to be able to bring you to our Jane Unchained audience. So tell us, how did you get involved with the plant-based food challenge at your hospital? Can you give us a little background about how that happened?
Yeah, sure. So how it started is our hospital had recognized there is a high rate of diabetes on the Navajo Nation, and they wanted to do something with it. So an employee came up with a plant-based program. Let's try the employees for I think it's like an 8 to 6 week challenge. So they got volunteers, they got the cafeteria to make us vegan breakfasts and vegan lunches. And then every week we had to kind of meet as like a support group to go over recipes, any challenges we're having. And we would get presenters every week, like, I became vegan, this is what I ate, and this is vitamins intake, and some challenges, here are some remedies. And so it was really cool. You know, they helped set us up, and they gave us the support we needed. And then in the end, it was like, okay, great. They took our body measurements in the beginning, and then at the end, they were like, okay, now tell us your benefits. You know, people left and right are like, oh, I got of my insulin medicine, like, you know, my dosage is cut in half, or I no longer have to take this heart medicine, or in my case, you know, I started running, and like there was a lot of good benefits to it. So the employees really liked it. So now I believe they've had 3 rounds of it. And so now everyone is on board. Our cafeteria still makes us vegan breakfast and vegan food available.
Oh, wonderful.
That's how we started the whole thing. And then they were like, once the program's over, you're free to go back to your regular diet or keep going. And since I had involved my husband with it, we decided we're going to keep going. I mean, we're already used to it, you know.
What were the benefits? How much weight did you lose, if you don't mind my asking?
I lost about 15 the first 6 weeks. But my husband, oh my goodness. So he has family members who are diabetic, and I was kind of afraid for him as well. So I said, you know, it would be a good idea for you to join me, even if it's for 6 weeks. And he really got into it. He started running, and he lost like 35 pounds on the challenge. It was crazy. Everyone was like, wow, you look great. Oh my God.
And what about your hemoglobin A1C, that measurement of your long-term diabetes measurement? How did that change?
Yeah, I was borderline, actually. I think I was at something like 5.7. Okay. And that kind of like really scared me. And so I was like, okay, I need to get this down. And so at the end of the challenge, and still to this day, I'm at a 5.0 to 5.1. I get my blood work every 6 months.
Oh my gosh, that's just that's life-saving, isn't it?
I know.
And how about your husband?
My husband, I don't know what his blood work is. I really don't, but he lost a lot of weight. Yeah, he looks great. Everyone is like, wow, like, what diet are you on? What are you doing? What are you eating? And he's like, no meat, no dairy products. And they're like, what?
So let's put up the food slide. So tell us about this. Are these all the foods that you've made?
Yes, those are foods that I've made, or that I've gone to, let's say, a restaurant and someone made it, you know. Okay. But most of them are everything that I've made.
Okay, because when I talked to you yesterday, you were saying that initially you thought this would be a lot of salads. This doesn't look like it's a lot of salad. Can you talk about how to sort of address the myths of what a plant-based diet would be?
Yeah, totally. I really thought it was just going to be like salads and nuts, and I was totally wrong. So what happened was the plant-based challenge gave us recipe books. We would also do like a cooking class. A vegan chef would come in from out of town, and then give us some pointers, and then they'd give us a recipe book. And then from there, I would use Pinterest or YouTube to make dishes. First we started with something like easy vegan dishes, or like vegan dishes for like a family of 4, or vegan dishes in 10 minutes, because we didn't know what we were doing.
So can you tell me a little bit about what's on the slide? I'll put it back.
Yeah. And so my favorite thing is, if you look at letter A, it's going to be, it's actually a smoothie. It's like a smoothie. Ice and fruits. We used maple syrup to sweeten it a little for the kids because it was too tart. And then we just cut up a bunch of bananas and blueberries. And you can just eat it like that. Sometimes the kids like to put like walnuts in it to make it crunchy. And then my favorite snack is letter B. So letter B is really good. That one is super easy. It's toast. I get an avocado, I spoon it out, and then I put garlic powder, turmeric, and red chili pepper on it because I really like spicy. And then I threw those little cherry tomatoes, from the refrigerator, and then you just toss them on, and it's like a snack. It's a really good snack. It's easy to make.
And what's I? Is that a burrito?
I is a burrito. So that is what I got at a restaurant. Okay. Oh my gosh. So I've been trying to remake that. It's a burrito, and it's like stuffed with, I can't even tell you how many different beans. Like the thing was called bean burrito in quotations because it was made with like 10 different beans.
Yeah.
It was so cool. It was really good, and the sauce was really nice.
You had a story about beans, how you felt about beans, because beans is a big part of your diet. How did you what were your initial thoughts about beans when you first did the challenge?
Yeah, so that's a funny story. So my mom was going vegan for a while, and now she's like vegetarian. Anyhow, she would always make us these bean meals, and I don't know. I was like, I don't want beans. It makes me gassy. I don't want to do that. And so when we did the plant-based challenge, it was beans, everything. You're going to be eating beans. You're going to be eating more beans, and then you're going to need more beans. And I'm like, I don't know how to cook beans. So, so of course I went to YouTube. And I found that using an Instant Pot. So that Instant Pot saved my life. Oh my gosh. Now I love beans. It's crazy. We love beans. I have all kinds of beans now in my kitchen. All kinds. We don't have to soak them anymore. We used to have to, but now we don't, because my husband and I were pretty used to it now that we don't get any side effects from it.
You're saying that because so for people who don't know, if you soak your beans, that soaking water takes that carbohydrate coating on the surface of the beans that often is responsible for producing gas. But you now have a very healthy gut microbiome, and you don't need to soak your beans anymore.
I know. Yeah. Once you get past that, you're like, I'm golden. I'm good.
And how are your kids with this dietary plan?
Oh, so my kids, so they are lactose intolerant. Our whole family is. So we had been drinking Lactaid. When I go on this plant-based challenge, we were told, go to almond milk or soy milk. So I chose to do almond milk. Then I introduced it to my kids in the chocolate milk form. And then they really liked it. And then I just slowly started switching it out, like in their cereal, or just if they want milk, or in their smoothies. And then now they're just full-blown almond milk. They really love it. And they can tell now, because when they go to school sometimes, the cafeteria people will give them regular milk. And then they say, no, I can't have this. This is cow's milk. I'm not a cow.
I love it.
So cute now. I was like, oh.
This looks like one of your children here. Tell us about this garden. This is, I believe, your garden, correct?
Yeah, this is actually we call it our family garden. So with this also started when we started doing the plant-based challenge at work. They taught us about food sovereignty. As Native Americans, we can plant. We do have all kinds of crops that we grow here. So I thought we should, bring it back, even if it's just in a small capacity. So again, we YouTubed how to make a garden bed, how to make soil, how to choose the right crops, how to water it. And so we built, my husband built the beds and then put up the fencing. The kids helped fill up the dirt, and then we tried to do seeds, but we ended up just going to Home Depot and getting the plants. And we kind of just crossed our fingers like, man, I hope this works. So we started in May, end of May, and it just started going. Like, everything was growing, and I'm like, oh my God. And the kids really liked it because they got to, play with the water and dig out stuff. And then we'd show them, if you look at the picture on the top right, there's broccoli. We had grown so many broccoli plants because we didn't know that they were going to grow so big. So the bottom picture underneath the broccoli on the bottom right, those are all broccoli heads. And we planted them kind of too close because we didn't know. But they gave us so much broccoli, and I was so happy. So we had a lot of everything with broccoli. And the little cherry tomatoes.
That's beautiful. So you probably saved a lot of money too by growing a lot of your own vegetables.
Yeah, and it was really nice because it was like, I need broccoli. I'll be back. I clip it, wash it, bring it back inside.
And did you grow the corn in this picture as well?
Yeah. So that's another thing is, as Navajo, we consider corn to be one of our sacred foods, and so we were like, okay, let's try corn. We've never tried corn. So the bottom left picture is a couple rows of corn. And the top left pictures are corn pollen. So Navajos use corn pollen to say their prayers, to bless people, their prayers. So teddy bean is sacred to us. And if you can harvest your own teddy bean, it's probably, that's like the most pure tetadine you can get. It's called tetadine, which is actually corn pollen. So we were able to harvest our own corn pollen every day. And
is that the top left? Is
yeah,
that
top left is the top left is after you tap the tassels of the corn stalk, and then the second one over is after you sift it to get all the little bugs out. And then after a while, it kind of dries up, and then you put it in the tetadine bag. It's that little like leather pouch thing, and then that you carry that with you. It's to bring you good luck, and you use it when you say prayers and do blessings. Yeah.
So do people who don't grow their own corn, do they actually purchase it? Is it available for?
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, you can buy it, but there's sketchy people now that will mix like cornstarch in it or like dye cornstarch and try to like make a bigger
Right. So that it's 100%.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like people are like, wow, you have like the purest form because you grew it yourself. So yeah, that's why it was like such a big deal. Everyone was like, wow, you actually got some.
Okay. Tell us about how your bodies have changed in terms of fitness.
Oh, geez. So, wow. Just overall, we feel so much more energetic. I mean, we can do more things with our kids. And one of the really cool things was we started running. So on the Navajo Nation, we have this running program called Just Move It. And what it is they have 5K or sometimes 10K walk and runs for the community. And it's a huge communities, and they're in different, agencies on the Navajo Nation. So my husband and I decided to do it. We've never done it. Never, ever. It's been here for like 20 years. We've never done it. So we went to one, and then we're like, that was really fun. Let's go to the next one. And then they started having incentives. Like, you run 5 races, you get a little pouch. Run 10 races, you get a visor. And we're like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's just keep going. And so we ended up traveling all over our community and agency, and we just did them. And so I was trying to take pictures of every single one we went to, and I'd be like, number 1, this is our second one, and so on, and number 7, number 8,
And how have the distances increased?
It was always 5K, but even though it was the same distance, our times got better.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're running in sand, in gravel, in mud. This is all off trail. Like maybe one course was on the highway road, but all of this is like gravel, sand, weeds, mosquitoes.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. So what's it like now in the community? Are there more people that are interested, that look at you and your husband and see how you've changed and you've become more fit and you've become healthy? Are people interested in that? People who haven't participated in this program? Let's talk about that. Do people want to do the same thing?
Yeah, they do. So like I said, at my my work, they had a couple of rounds of the plant-based challenge. So every year someone wants to join, and it gets a little bit bigger. Sometimes they have to have a waiting list. But the food served in the cafeteria is available to anyone. You don't have to be on that challenge.
Uh-huh.
The only perk we get is that, it's a $5 meal instead of, I don't know, $7, $8. So
there's a financial incentive to eat.
Yeah. And then going into our families, we tend to give them, food advice, or, if you eat this instead of this, or try this tofu, we can make it taste like scrambled eggs, and this is so much better for you. Or like we made tacos, and they're like, wow, this is really good. And especially my dad, he's like a huge meat eater, and sometimes my mom will cook him a tofu type meal and he won't even know the difference. Yeah, it's really good. And even our friends from work, at first they were kind of like, I guess, making fun of us, or always like, oh, I could never do that. But I think now that they've seen my husband and I stick with it so long, and it's just nothing bothers us anymore. Like when when they have a pizza party, you know, and it's all pepperoni pizza, I'm not in this corner like, dang, I wish I had some, or, oh my God, that looks so good. You know, I've come to adapt to where I just don't need it, you know? And so they ask us, you know, what do you eat instead? Or what do you do? And, or, hey, can I try some of whatever it is you brought to lunch? And I'm like, yeah, totally. So,
so what would be your parting words for somebody that's interested, not just somebody from a Native American tribe, but just somebody in general who's thinking about it? What kind of parting words do you have, and to support somebody who has a family, has a husband or a wife, and has kids? What would you say that they should do? How would they start?
I think they really should find a support group, whether it's someone you know locally that is also plant-based or vegan. If you go on Facebook and find a group, as long as you have some type of support group, like someone to vent to, someone to ask, how do I do this? Or why am I feeling like this? Or, you know, I can't take the slack that I get from my friends for becoming vegan, you know, because that's what I had that support system when I did the challenge, because we met every week. There was a big group of us, and, you know, I was able to tell them, like, I feel weird, or I don't know, have you guys tried making this? And did I make it right? You know, it helps a lot when you have some type of support, whether it's online or someone, you know, say a friend.
Someone who's going through the same thing with you.
Right. It's kind of hard to do it alone.
That's excellent advice. Well, I want to thank you so much for spending time with us and recording this with me today.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of you and your husband and all the incredible success you've had personally as a family, and especially the role model that you are for your community. It's so incredibly powerful, because look at all of these risk factors. And, you know, we're talking about COVID today, and we know that these comorbidities, people who have problems with their weight and their blood sugar and their blood pressure, those people are at much higher risk of not doing as well should they contract COVID. So at Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, we want people to be as healthy as they can and hopefully never have to face COVID. But, you know, God forbid if they do, at least their bodies are in better shape.
Right. It's exactly what we always talk about too. You know, like, wow, it's a good thing we're vegan. It's a good thing we went plant-based.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And it was just wonderful for you to join us. And I hope I get to meet you one day in person.
Yay!
Bye-bye.
Bye.
There we go. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. It's a little different. First time I had somebody talk to us via videotape. But thank you all for joining us. Please write your questions in the comments either on Facebook or on YouTube. And Dr. Trapp and I will come back to answer your questions. And it was wonderful to have you join us today. We ran a little long, a little 5 minutes over. But thank you so much for joining us. Lisa Karlan, host of Hey Doc, What's New in Plant-Based Medicine. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Bye.